It was a cold, rainy night in New York City. Ethan Carter, a man dressed in an expensive suit, found himself trapped in a narrow alley, his heart pounding with every step. He had just left a high-profile meeting, but something about the evening felt, off. As he walked briskly, he heard footsteps behind him. Turning, he saw two men closing in, their faces hidden under dark hoodies. "Ethan Carter," one of them called out, his voice sharp and taunting. "Thought you could escape us." Ethan's mind raced. These weren't just random muggers. They knew who he was. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, his voice steady but his hands trembling. "You've got the wrong guy." The men exchanged looks, and one of them pulled a knife from his jacket. Ethan's breath caught. He took a step back, his polished shoes slipping slightly on the wet pavement. "Don't make this harder than it has to be," the other man sneered, stepping closer. Just when Ethan thought he had run out of options, a voice rang out from behind the men. "Hey, leave him alone!" It was sharp, commanding, and completely unexpected. The two attackers turned to see a young woman, her clothes ragged and soaked from the rain. She held a metal pipe in her hands, gripping it tightly despite her small frame. "Get lost, lady," one of the men spat. But before they could react, she lunged forward, swinging the pipe with surprising force. The sound of metal hitting flesh echoed through the alley as one of the men stumbled backward, clutching his arm in pain. Ethan stood frozen, watching as this stranger, this woman who looked like she had nothing, fought off his attackers with fierce determination. When the second man advanced, she didn't hesitate. She swung again, forcing him to drop the knife he had been holding. Realizing they were outmatched, the two men cursed under their breath and fled into the shadows. The alley fell silent except for the sound of rain hitting the pavement. Ethan stared at the woman, his chest heaving as he tried to catch his breath. You okay?" she asked, leaning on the pipe as though she needed it to steady herself. "You really shouldn't be walking around alleys like this." Ethan nodded slowly, still too shocked to speak. She looked him over, her eyes sharp and observant. "You're lucky I came along. Those guys weren't playing around." Finally finding his voice, Ethan said, "Thank you. I don't even know your name, but I owe you." The woman gave a small, wry smile. Sophia Bennett, and you don't owe me anything." Ethan pulled out his wallet, but Sophia held up a hand to stop him. "I don't want your money," she said firmly. "Just stay out of trouble." She turned to leave, but Ethan called after her. "Wait. Please, let me help you. I can't just—" Sophia shook her head. "I don't need help." But the way her shoulders sagged as she walked away told a different story. Ethan stood in the rain, watching her disappear into the night. Something about her struck him. Not just her bravery, but the sadness she carried like a heavy cloak. He couldn't let it end there. She had saved his life, and whether she wanted it or not, he was determined to return the favor. Life has a strange way of bringing people together, even in the most unexpected moments. What started as a chance encounter in the rain was about to change everything for both Ethan and Sophia. But their story is far from over. If you're as hooked as I am, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Heart Stories for more captivating tales. Let us know in the comments what you think will happen next. Ethan Carter couldn't shake the image of Sophia Bennett from his mind, the way she had fearlessly jumped into a dangerous situation, her piercing eyes, and the mysterious air that surrounded her. It had been days since the alley incident, and though life had returned to its high-powered pace, Ethan found himself distracted. He decided to act. Ethan used his resources to locate Sophia, a feat that took surprisingly little time. She was sleeping in a tucked-away corner of a homeless shelter on the outskirts of Manhattan. He found her. She was huddled on a worn mattress, flipping through a dog-eared notebook filled with intricate sketches and scribbles. "Sophia," he called gently. She looked up, startled. Her guard was immediately up, as though expecting a fight. "You again?" she asked, her tone more annoyed than curious. "I told you, I don't need your help." "And I told you," Ethan replied calmly. "I owe you." Sophia refused his attempts to hand her money again and again. Frustrated but persistent, Ethan tried a different angle. "Fine, no money, but at least let me offer you something better. An opportunity. Come work for me," he said. Sophia narrowed her eyes. "Work for you? Doing what? Polishing your fancy shoes?" Ethan smirked, recognizing the sharp wit in her tone. "Not quite. You're sharp, and I suspect you have more to offer than you're letting on. Let me prove it to you. 1 week, you help me with a project, and if you don't find it worth your time, you can walk away." Sophia hesitated. The pride in her voice clashed with the hunger in her stomach. Finally, she gave a slight nod. 1 week, she said firmly. "But I'm not promising anything." The next morning, Ethan brought her to his sleek Manhattan office, a towering building buzzing with activity. Dressed in borrowed clothes, Sophia looked out of place, but walked with her head held high. She met curious stares with a steady gaze, unfazed by the judgmental glances from Ethan's polished employees. Ethan led her to a private conference room. "This," he said, handing her a laptop, "is where you start. Our company has been facing cybersecurity breaches. I need someone with fresh eyes to look at these logs and tell me what's going on." Sophia frowned. "Cybersecurity? I told you I don't." But her words trailed off as she opened the files. Her fingers instinctively moved across the keyboard, navigating complex data structures with ease. Hours passed in silence as Sophia lost herself in the puzzle, piecing together patterns and anomalies. She barely noticed Ethan watching her from the corner of the room, his curiosity growing with every passing minute. Finally, she looked up, a mixture of triumph and exhaustion on her face. "There's a back door embedded in your system's source code," she said. "Someone's been siphoning data for months, maybe years, but it's subtle. Whoever did this is good." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Can you trace it?" Sophia nodded. "Give me a little more time." Sophia's findings led to a name: Marcus Vance, a former employee of Ethan's company who had left under mysterious circumstances. Ethan's face darkened at the mention of Marcus, a man whose ambitions had once rivaled his own. But as they dug deeper, Sophia's focus shifted. Among the reams of stolen data, she found a specific set of files flagged in red. She paused, her eyes narrowing as she read through them. "This isn't just company data," she muttered. "These are personal files, yours." Ethan leaned over her shoulder, his expression unreadable. "What kind of files?" Sophia hesitated before answering. "Financial records, private communications. Whoever's behind this isn't just targeting your company. They're targeting you." As the days went by, Sophia's talents became increasingly evident. Her natural aptitude for technology and data analysis stunned Ethan's team, but her guarded demeanor and the occasional slip in her carefully chosen words hinted at a deeper story. One evening, as they worked late in Ethan's office, He decided to confront her. "You're good at this, too good," he said. "Where did you learn all of this?" Sophia froze for a moment, then shrugged. "You pick things up when you're on the streets." Ethan wasn't convinced. "Cut the act. You weren't always on the streets, were you?" Sophia sighed, her defenses cracking slightly. "No, I wasn't." She paused, as though weighing how much to reveal. "Let's just say, I used to work for people who knew how to use these skills. People who didn't exactly operate on the right side of the law." Ethan's eyebrows rose. "You were a hacker?" Sophia nodded reluctantly. "Something like that, but I got out. At least, I thought I did." Ethan leaned back in his chair, processing this revelation. He could see the pain in her eyes, the regret she carried. "Well," he said finally, "it seems your past might be the key to solving this mess." Despite their differences, Ethan and Sophia began to develop an unlikely partnership. Her sharp mind complemented his strategic thinking, and together they uncovered more pieces of the puzzle. Ethan couldn't help but admire her resilience, while Sophia found herself reluctantly respecting his determination. But their partnership wasn't without friction. Sophia's disdain for corporate greed often clashed with Ethan's pragmatic approach to business. One heated argument ended with her storming out of his office, leaving Ethan to wonder if she would ever return. She did. "I don't trust you," she admitted the next morning, standing in his doorway. "But I trust myself, and I'm not walking away until we finish this." Ethan nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Fair enough." As the week came to an end, Sophia's investigation uncovered a shocking twist. The breach wasn't just about sabotage. It was part of a larger conspiracy involving Marcus Vance and a shadowy figure from Sophia's own past, someone who knew her secrets as well as Ethan's. The pieces of their lives were starting to intertwine in ways neither of them could have imagined. And as the danger escalated, they realized they couldn't afford to face it alone. Ethan Carter and Sophia Bennett had cracked the surface of the mystery surrounding the security breach at Carter Tech, but the deeper they dug, the more dangerous and complex the situation became. The discovery of Marcus Vance's involvement and the targeted theft of Ethan's personal files pointed to a far-reaching conspiracy, one that didn't just threaten Ethan's company, but his very life. Sophia's skills had led them to a key breakthrough: encrypted communications between Marcus and an unidentified figure with the codename Spectre. This shadowy collaborator seemed to be orchestrating the attacks from behind the scenes, their motives as elusive as their identity. As Ethan stared at the evidence on the screen, a cold realization struck him. "This isn't just about taking my company down," he muttered. "It's personal. They want to ruin me." Sophia's fingers flew across the keyboard. "And they're good at it," she said. "Whoever Spectre is, they've been covering their tracks for years. It's like chasing a ghost." But just as Sophia spoke, a new notification popped up on the screen. It was a live access attempt from an internal server. Someone within Carter Tech was actively transmitting data to an unknown destination. "We've got 'em all," Sophia said, her voice low and tense. Sophia and Ethan quickly traced the access point to the office of Linda Porter, Ethan's trusted executive assistant. Ethan's chest tightened with disbelief. Linda had been with him since the company's inception. She had helped him build Carter Tech from the ground up. "There's no way," Ethan said, shaking his head. "Linda wouldn't do this." But the evidence was damning. Sophia displayed a log of outgoing transmissions tied directly to Linda's workstation. She's either working with them or someone's using her credentials, Sophia said. Either way, we need to confront her. Ethan called Linda into his office, his demeanor calm but his eyes searching for answers. As Linda entered, she looked at Sophia with curiosity, then turned to Ethan. "What's going on?" "I need you to be honest with me," Ethan said, his tone measured. "Have you accessed sensitive files recently? Files that don't pertain to your role?" Linda frowned. "Of course not. Why would I?" She stopped mid-sentence as realization dawned. "You think I'm the leak." Sophia, standing silently in the corner, watched the exchange carefully. Something about Linda's reaction felt genuine, but the clock was ticking and they needed answers fast. Instead of accusing Linda outright, Sophia devised a plan. They would let Linda continue her work as if nothing had happened, but secretly monitor her activity to see if she made contact with anyone suspicious. Sophia stayed up all night analyzing every move Linda made on the company network. It wasn't until dawn that she found something. "She's clean," Sophia said, her voice cutting through the silence of Ethan's office. "Her credentials were cloned. Someone else is using her access." Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Then we're back to square one," he said, running a hand through his hair. "How do we figure out who's behind this?" Sophia leaned back in her chair, a sly smile playing on her lips. "We bait them." Using Ethan's authority, Sophia created a decoy file, an encrypted document labeled as a merger plan with a major tech firm. It was designed to look like a goldmine of sensitive information. Sophia then planted the file in a secure folder and waited. It didn't take long for the trap to spring. Within hours, the decoy file was accessed remotely, and the transmission trail led them to a hidden server in the building's sub-basement, an area that had been abandoned for years. Ethan and Sophia descended into the sub-basement, the air heavy with dust and tension. As they reached the server room, Sophia's sharp eyes scanned the space. The servers were humming softly, their blinking lights casting eerie shadows on the walls. "Whoever set this up knew exactly what they were doing," Sophia said, her voice barely above a whisper. Suddenly, the sound of a door creaking open echoed through the room. Ethan and Sophia froze. Footsteps approached, deliberate and slow. "Looks like the trap worked," a voice said, smooth and mocking. From the shadows emerged Marcus Vance, his smirk cold and calculated. "I knew you couldn't resist." Marcus wasn't alone. Behind him stood two men, armed and imposing. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine as Marcus approached. "You always did underestimate me, Ethan," Marcus said, his tone dripping with disdain. "You thought you could fire me and sweep it all under the rug, but you forgot one thing. I don't forget, and I don't forgive." Ethan clenched his fists. "This isn't just about the company, is it? What do you really want?" Marcus chuckled. "What I want? I want to watch everything you've built crumble. I want you to feel the same humiliation I felt when you discarded me like trash." Sophia stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. "And what's in it for Spectre? You're not smart enough to pull this off on your own." Marcus's smirk faltered for a moment, but he quickly recovered. "The Spectre is none of your concern. You should worry about yourselves instead." As Marcus gestured to his men, one of them advanced toward Ethan and Sophia. But before he could reach them, Sophia grabbed a metal pipe lying nearby and swung it with precision, knocking the weapon from his hand. Chaos erupted. Ethan tackled the second man, while Sophia used her agility to disarm the first. Marcus tried to flee, but Sophia was faster. She cornered him, her eyes blazing with fury. "Tell me who Spectre is," she demanded, her voice low and dangerous. Marcus laughed bitterly. "Even if I told you, it wouldn't matter. Spectre is everywhere. You can't stop them." Before Sophia could press further, the sound of sirens filled the air. Ethan had secretly triggered a silent alarm during the fight. The police arrived moments later, arresting Marcus and his men. Back in Ethan's office, Sophia replayed Marcus's words in her mind. "Spectre is everywhere." The statement felt more like a warning than a boast. "This isn't over," she said, breaking the silence. "Marcus was just a pawn. Whoever Spectre is, they're still out there." Ethan nodded grimly. "Then we keep digging. We're not stopping until we take them down." The partnership between Ethan and Sophia had solidified. What had begun as a reluctant alliance was now a united front against a larger enemy. But the deeper they ventured into the conspiracy, the more dangerous it became. And both of them knew it was only a matter of time before Spectre made their next move. The events of the past weeks had forged an unlikely partnership between Ethan and Sophia. Together, they had unearthed the first layers of a conspiracy that ran deep within Ethan's company. But the cracks in their alliance began to widen as secrets, long buried, started surfacing. The interrogation of Marcus had yielded little concrete information, but his cryptic words continued to haunt Ethan. "You think you're untouchable, Ethan," Marcus had sneered during his arrest. "And you can't bury your sins forever. People like you always pay." Those words echoed in Ethan's mind as he sat alone in his office late one night. His gaze fell on a photograph on his desk. Himself, younger and less cynical, standing next to his late business partner, Jonathan Reed. Jonathan's death had marked a turning point of Ethan's rise to power. It wasn't an accident, Ethan knew that much, but he had no dare to dig too deep. What would he find if he did? Sophia found him in this state, staring blankly at the photo. She paused at the door, her sharp eyes noticing the tension in his shoulders. "What's eating you?" she asked, stepping into the room. Ethan shook his head. "Nothing. Just old ghosts." Sophia wasn't buying it. She folded her arms, leaning against the desk. "You've been acting off ever since Marcus mentioned your sins. Care to share with the class?" For a moment, Ethan considered brushing her off, but the weight of the secrets he carried was becoming unbearable. "Jonathan Reed," he said finally, his voice low. "He was my partner when I started Carter Tech. We built this company together. But he died suddenly. Too suddenly. I was told it was a heart attack, but..." Ethan's voice faltered. "I found out later that someone had been blackmailing him, and I didn't do enough to stop it." Ethan's father, who was back and forth with his wife about his marriage, looked grimly his family. Ethan's father was told it was a heart attack, but can't remember who. He said, slowly but firmly, and he died. Sophia's eyes narrowed. "You think he was murdered?" Ethan nodded. "I've always suspected it, but I was too focused on keeping the company afloat to investigate. Maybe that makes me just as guilty as the person who killed him." Sophia didn't respond immediately to Ethan's confession. Instead, she stared out the window, her jaw tightening. Ethan noticed her sudden shift in demeanor. "Sophia," he said, his tone gentle but firm, "what's going on?" She let out a bitter laugh. "You think you're the only one with skeletons in your closet? Trust me, Ethan, My past makes yours look like a fairy tale." Ethan leaned forward. "I'm listening." Sophia hesitated, but as she looked into Ethan's eyes, she saw something she hadn't expected. Understanding. With a deep breath, she began. "A few years ago, I wasn't on the streets. I was working for a group called Echelon. They were hackers, good ones, but they weren't just after money or corporate secrets. They went after people, destroyed lives for sport." Ethan's expression hardened. "And you were part of that?" Sophia nodded, shame flickering across her face. "I didn't know what I was getting into at first. They promised me a purpose, a family. But then I saw what they were doing, ruining people's reputations, driving them to bankruptcy or worse. When I tried to leave, they came after me. They burned everything, my home, my records. That's how I ended up on the streets." The weight of their confessions hung in the air. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan broke the silence. "Do you think Echelon is connected to Spectre?" Sophia froze. "It's possible. Spectre's methods feel familiar. The way they've been targeting you, manipulating people from the shadows, it's exactly what Echelon did." Ethan stood, pacing the room. "If they're connected, that means we're not just dealing with a rogue employee or a rival company. This is bigger, much bigger." Sophia's eyes darkened. "And if Echelon is involved, they won't stop until they've destroyed everything in their path." Determined to uncover the truth, Ethan and Sophia decided to dig deeper into Echelon's operations. Using Sophia's old contacts, they traced the group to a series of offshore servers. But when Sophia tried to access them, her laptop was immediately locked with a flashing red warning. "What the—" she muttered, her fingers flying over the keys. But no matter what she tried, the system wouldn't budge. Suddenly, Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and felt the blood drain from his face. It was a video message. Sophia leaned over to look. On the screen was a shadowy figure wearing a mask, their voice distorted. "You're playing a dangerous game, Mr. Carter. Walk away, or the skeletons in your closet will bury you alive." Sophia's hands clenched into fists. "That's them. That's Echelon." The video ended with a chilling statement. "And you, Sophia, did you really think you could hide from us forever?" Ethan turned to her. "They know who you are." Sophia's face was pale, but her voice was steady. "They've always known. I just hoped I'd outrun them." The pressure began to take its toll. Ethan and Sophia's fragile trust started to crack as they grappled with the enormity of their shared enemy. One night, during a heated argument, Ethan accused Sophia of not being completely honest. "How do I know you're not still working for them?" he demanded. Sophia's eyes blazed with anger. "Are you serious? After everything I've done to help you?" "You're the only link I have to Echelon," Ethan shot back. "How do I know you're not leading them right to me?" Sophia stepped closer, her voice low and fierce. "You don't. But let me remind you of something, Ethan. I didn't have to save your life that night in the alley. If I were working for them, you'd already be dead." Ethan stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. Finally, he sighed. "I'm sorry. It's just... this is all too much." Sophia softened slightly. "For both of us." Despite their differences, Ethan and Sophia knew they couldn't fight Spectre or Echelon alone. Their dark pasts had brought them to this point, but they also gave them the tools they needed to survive. We don't have to trust each other completely, Sophia said, but we both want the same thing, to take them down. Ethan nodded, and maybe, just maybe, we can find a little redemption along the way. The tension had been building for weeks. Ethan and Sophia had pieced together the puzzle, uncovering the dark threads that connected Spectre, Echelon, and Marcus Vance. But as they prepared to strike, the enemy moved first. It began with an invitation, an email sent directly to Ethan's personal account. The message was simple, but the implications were chilling. "Mr. Carter, we've been waiting for you. Meet us at the place where it all began. Midnight. Come alone or face the consequences." Ethan stared at the message, his jaw tightening. "The place where it all began," he muttered. "They mean Carter Tech headquarters, the old wing." Sophia frowned. "It's a trap." "Of course it is," Ethan replied, his voice resolute. "But we don't have a choice. If we wait, they'll destroy everything. My company, your chance at freedom, and God knows what else." Sophia placed a hand on his arm. "You're not going alone. If we do this, we do it together." Ethan hesitated, but he knew she was right. "Fine, but we go in prepared." At midnight, Ethan and Sophia approached the old wing of Carter Tech. The building was dark, its once bustling corridors now silent and eerie. The glow of their flashlights cut through the darkness as they moved cautiously, their footsteps echoing in the empty halls. Sophia's sharp eyes scanned every corner, her laptop strapped to her back, ready to hack into any system they encountered. Ethan carried a concealed weapon, his hand steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "Stay close," he whispered. As they reached the main server room, the air grew heavy. Sophia tapped into the control panel, bypassing layers of encryption with practiced ease. "They've rerouted all activity here," she said. "Whatever they're planning, it's big." Suddenly, the monitors flickered to life. The face of Spectre appeared, a figure shrouded in shadows, their voice distorted. "You shouldn't have come, Mr. Carter. And you, Sophia, we thought you'd know better." Sophia's hands clenched into fists. "Show yourself, coward." The Spectre chuckled. You'll see me soon enough, but first let's see if you can survive the welcoming party." The room filled with the sound of heavy boots as armed mercenaries stormed in. Ethan and Sophia barely had time to react before the first shots rang out. "Get down," Ethan shouted, pulling Sophia behind a desk. He returned fire, his aim precise despite the chaos. Sophia grabbed her laptop, quickly hacking into the building's security system. "Give me a second," she yelled. "I can activate the lockdown." "We don't have a second," Ethan snapped, ducking as bullets whizzed past. Sophia worked furiously, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Finally, she hit enter, and the sound of heavy metal doors slamming shut echoed through the building, trapping the mercenaries inside. "Got it," she shouted. Ethan grinned despite the danger. "Remind me never to underestimate you." With the immediate threat neutralized, Ethan and Sophia followed Spectre's taunts deeper into the building. The path led them to the executive boardroom, where a single chair faced the window. The figure sitting there stood as they entered. "I've been waiting for this moment," Spectre said, their voice no longer distorted. They removed the mask, revealing a familiar face, Jonathan Reed. Ethan staggered back, his mind reeling. "Jonathan? But you're dead." Jonathan's smile was cold. Dead? No, Ethan. You betrayed me. You let them destroy me, and now it's my turn to return the favor. Sophia's eyes darted between them. What the hell is going on? Jonathan gestured toward Ethan. Your partner here isn't the saint you think he is. He knew what would happen if he didn't stop the blackmail. He chose his company over me, over our friendship, and now he's going to pay. Jonathan pressed a button on the table, and the screens around the room displayed live footage of Carter Tech's financial systems being wiped out. Millions of dollars and sensitive data disappeared in real time. Stop this, Ethan shouted. You don't have to do this. Jonathan's eyes burned with fury. You took everything from me. Now I'm taking everything from you. Sophia stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tension. This isn't just about Ethan, is it? You're working with Echelon. They're using you. Jonathan hesitated, but his resolve didn't waver. I don't care. As long as Ethan suffers, it's worth it. Sophia moved swiftly, pulling out her laptop. Then, suffer this. She hacked into the system, countering the data wipe with lightning speed. Jonathan lunged at her, but Ethan intercepted him. The two men clashed, years of anger and betrayal fueling their fight. As Ethan and Jonathan fought, Sophia managed to reverse the data wipe and lock Echelon out of the system. But before she could celebrate, an alert flashed on her screen. Self-destruct sequence initiated, the voice announced. The building was rigged to explode. Sophia shouted, "We have 5 minutes, we need to get out of here." Ethan pinned Jonathan to the ground, his voice desperate. "Call it off, Jonathan, you'll kill everyone." Jonathan laughed bitterly. Maybe it's better this way. Sophia grabbed Ethan's arm. "We have to go, now." Ethan hesitated, his eyes locking with Jonathan's. Finally, he released him and followed Sophia. Ethan and Sophia raced through the building, the countdown blaring in their ears. Flames erupted around them as the self-destruct sequence reached its final seconds. They burst through the exit just as the building exploded, the force throwing them to the ground. Coughing and battered, Ethan turned to Sophia. "Did we stop them?" Sophia held up her laptop, the screen displaying a victory message. "For now, but Echelon won't give up." Ethan nodded grimly. "Then neither will we." The smoldering ruins of Carter Tech's old wing loomed in the background as the sun rose, casting a faint golden glow over the chaos. Firefighters worked tirelessly to extinguish the remaining flames, and emergency responders cordoned off the area. Ethan Carter and Sophia Bennett sat on the curb, exhausted, their clothes singed and their faces streaked with soot. "We made it," Ethan said, his voice hoarse but relieved. Sophia gave a small, tired laugh. "Barely." She stared at the rising smoke, her expression somber. "But it's not over, is it?" Ethan shook his head. "No. Echelon is still out there, and whoever Spectre truly answers to won't stop just because we survived." Sophia leaned back, letting out a long breath. Then I guess we'd better prepare for what's next." Over the following weeks, Ethan took steps to rebuild not just his company, but also his reputation. He addressed the public directly in a press conference, revealing the truth about the cyber attacks, Marcus Vance, and the threats against Carter Tech. "I've made mistakes," he admitted, his voice steady but sincere. "Mistakes that have cost people dearly. But from this day forward, I commit to rebuilding this company with integrity, to ensuring that no one else suffers because of my failures." Ethan also worked behind the scenes to ensure financial restitution for the employees and families affected by Spectre's actions. His efforts earned him cautious praise from the media, but more importantly, it began to repair the trust of those who had once believed in him. For Sophia, the weeks after the explosion marked the beginning of a new chapter. With Ethan's help, she secured a permanent home and began using her skills to help others in need. She partnered with local shelters and nonprofit organizations, offering cybersecurity training to disadvantaged youth and former convicts looking to start over. One day, while teaching a class, a young girl approached her with wide eyes. "Miss Sophia," the girl asked, "how did you learn all this? Were you always good at computers?" Sophia paused, her heart heavy with memories of her past. "No," she said gently. "I had to learn the hard way. But what matters is how we use what we know to make things better, for ourselves and for others." The girl smiled, her confidence growing. For the first time in years, Sophia felt truly at peace. Despite their efforts to move forward, the shadow of Echelon remained. Sophia continued to dig into their operations, determined to dismantle the group that had once controlled her life. Ethan offered his resources, but Sophia insisted on handling it alone. "I need to do this my way," she told him. "If I don't confront them, they'll keep coming after us, and I won't let them win." Ethan respected her decision, but made one promise. "If you ever need me, I'll be there. No questions asked." Sophia smiled faintly. "I'll do to that." All this between passion and magic, which had no rules and no boundaries. Months later, Sophia received a message on a secure channel. The sender claimed to have critical information about Echelon's leadership and their next target. The coordinates pointed to a remote location outside of the city. She hesitated, debating whether to involve Ethan. Ultimately, she decided to go alone, but not before leaving Ethan a note. "This is something I have to face on my own. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. If I don't make it back, keep fighting for what's right." Ethan found the note just hours after she left. His jaw tightened as he grabbed his coat. "Not on my watch," he muttered, heading for his car. Ethan arrived at the coordinates just in time to find Sophia facing off with a group of Echelon operatives. Together, they fought back, leveraging their combined skills and unyielding determination. In the end, they uncovered critical information about Echelon's leadership, a list of names and locations that would help dismantle the organization piece by piece. As they stood together in the aftermath, Sophia turned to Ethan. "I guess I can't get rid of you, how?" Ethan smirked. "Not a chance." Back in New York, Sophia and Ethan began their new mission, exposing Echelon and protecting those caught in its web. Their partnership had grown into something neither of them had expected, a bond forged through adversity, trust, and mutual respect. Ethan rebuilt Carter Tech with Sophia's help, implementing stronger security measures and creating programs to support ethical innovation. Sophia, meanwhile, became a beacon of hope for others trying to escape their pasts. "We're not heroes," Ethan said one evening, as they looked out over the city from his penthouse balcony. "But maybe we can do some good." Sophia nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. One step at a time." Life doesn't always give second chances, but when it does, it's up to us to make the most of them. For Ethan and Sophia, the battle isn't over, but they've found strength in each other to keep fighting. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Heart Stories for more tales of resilience and redemption. What do you think should happen next in Ethan and Sophia's journey? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts.